FlyQuest 3-1.
Okay.
Just because I think that the level of volatility that FlyQuest has shown throughout the entire year means that they're, like, especially Bwipo, he tries to push limits every single time. We were having this discussion earlier about Bwipo and what level we think he's at this year. I actually think he's been quite good because all of his most visible screw-ups and ints have been from winning positions. So he's getting these leads because he's good, and then he's throwing them because of the bad things about his game. But that just means overall, I think he's still playing at a very high level. It just means that he has the ability to have those whoopsies.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, as we take a look at draft, I think it's interesting that FlyQuest have removed the Yone. NRG was playing a few Yone comps. Last week, Ezreal pointed out how they really weren't able to coordinate on those team fights, but still off the table. And then the Ivern against Contractz and the MF. Most notably, Sejuani is still up for Contractz if FlyQuest decide not to pick it. And that's just been a power pick for him, even though he did lose on it to TL last week. And then Senna and Lilia are the big two that I see removed from NRG that are pretty interesting, as well as the Renekton. So we won't see an LPL B1 Renekton that is
the classic
terrorizing China right now.
All right, well, no Renektons. The Yone, the Ivern, the Misfortune, all banned out by FlyQuest. We've got Energy taking out the Lilia, the Senna, and that Renekton. Let's see the Ezreal locked in first for FlyQuest and Massu.
And to Emily's point, I would hope to see the Sejuani come out fairly early. I think because of FlyQuest's priority on the other three bans, it's just something that they're willing to let through. I don't expect FlyQuest to necessarily take it just because of how fully committed they've been to the style of Inspired getting to farm as much as he wants.
Yeah.
Not just fully committed, but also super comfortable, right? Like, Inspired has looked so good on these picks. And instead, we see the Azir Ashe coming out. Ashe has also been something that has been successful for NRG previously. And then the Azir coming back for Palafox is the big one. You're taking that away from Quad, who's also really good at it, and nice shout out to Flowers. But
hell yeah, dude. I always appreciate
we talked about Palafox and how he has really, really struggled this year. He has looked good on Azir in the past.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because if we remember yesterday's series with Dignitas and 100 Thieves kind of went back to mages now that they've been buffed as opposed to the 80 carry mid-meta that has plagued all of summer, and they looked a lot better on it. I'm curious if Energy will be able to cast a similar sort of spell here with the Azir back in mid. The Ashe you also mentioned. Over on FlyQuest, though, it's Inspired on the Vi.
Yeah.
And he, as much as we joke around, okay, CEO, full clear, Inspired has looked so good on these AP jungle. He is also a very good Vi player. And the Orianna coming in for Quad is also a really good combination there. Now we see the Wukong coming out of NRG.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this is a playoff pivot. I'm going to focus on FlyQuest first, only because if I look at the champions that they themselves have actually played in the summer split, Quad played 20 of his 21 mid-games on 80 carries. 10 Corki, 6 Trist, 4 Lucian, and 1 Aurelion Souls. This is only the second mage he's actually played in summer, and then it will be the first Vi pick for Inspired in summer as well, even if he's got a long history with the champion in prior seasons.
Yeah, and I mean, Quad played Azir back when he was in LCK as well.
And
he played it a ton on FlyQuest Challengers.
Probably more known as a mage player before this exact split, so it should be comfortable for him. It just hasn't been what we've seen from him this split.
Okay, so we have what we would assume to be marksmen, mid laners, and junglers for both sides. Means I need to see top laners, I need to see supports, and I'm going to see a lot of both here in the second half of the bans, with Rumble banned out by FlyQuest, Leona banned out by Energy. Do they want to double target the support role here? Yep, looks like they do. The Bard, final ban for Energy.
And I'm curious to see where this goes depending on FlyQuest's final ban here, because Energy could also go with something like a Kalista Ashe if they want to do a really strong 2v2 bot pivot. We know that FBI and Huhi have also really liked running those lanes together as well, not just on Energy, but in the past on 100 Thieves, as we see the Renata coming out.
Definitely trying to block whatever the most bully partner would be for Ashe. And looking through the list, Nautilus would be up, but I don't think that Nautilus Ashe is necessarily the combo you'd want. If they wanted to go really defensive, they'd go Braum. But I do like the engage option for them as they're long hovering this, which usually means they'll lock it in.
Okay, Rakan locked in for NRG. So now you've got a big potential wombo combo engage with Rakan on the grand entrance, right? Going in with the quickness. You've got the Wukong for the Cyclone. You've got the Azir that can be able to start it off with a shuffle. There's a lot of go buttons here on NRG.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what they are going to save for Dhokla as R5, as we see the hover over the Poppy, potentially for Bwipo, but Ksante is kind of the classic blind for so many of our top players, including Bwipo, and that's what he's going to go with here.
I would have really liked to see that Poppy, though. Like, Poppy into Wukong, Rakan, Azir just feels downright dirty, but the Ksante, I can't really fault you for it. He's been overpowered since he was released. It's a really strong champion in pro, so that's for Bwipo. Last pick of the draft, though, coming up here. What do they want to pair with that Ezreal for Massu down there? Busio's going to lock the Karma, so a lot of poke here in the bottom lane for FlyQuest.
Yep, it is a classic lane, the Karma Ezreal, because it can get shove against almost everything, so they're using that to try and counter the immediate laning power of the Ashe. So even though NRG has the Ashe, it should be FlyQuest who's able to get pushed in the bot lane.
Yeah, and it also sets up a really easy, good lane for Inspired to play around immediately early. I am wondering if we see a shift from him. As we see the Sion locked in from Dhokla, I am wondering if NRG are going to go for a swap, especially since Sion is so good in those. But with this pushing lane, I do want to point out Inspired has something really easy that he can play on. They stack that wave. They do an early dive on bot side. I'll be curious to see if FlyQuest go for it.
I will as well. I think even if NRG isn't expecting to swap, the Sion would put them in a good situation if the swap happens. I also do think it's a little bit funny that a long conversation was had between Bwipo and Sniper about Sion prior to Pro's recording last week, and now he's having it played against him by Dhokla, who has not played Sion yet this split on stage.
What was that conversation like?
It was a lot about Bwipo saying he will play Sion because of the strengths that the Sion brings and because it can, you know, build on his strengths as a player and how certain players need to play to their strengths, and Sniper shouldn't be playing Sion. You could have something similar to that on...
And start this one hot. Remember that our first series in playoffs just yesterday was a 3-0. Either one of these teams would love to repeat it. A lot of people are expecting FlyQuest to be able to do just that, but let's see what they've been cooking here for the past week. Just taking a look at what everything's set up with. You do see your standard teleports for all of our solo laners. Cleanse for Massu does want to be able to get away from those arrows should they ever connect, and the Rakan engages going forward. So a little bit more combat power for the summoner spells for NRG's bottom lane duo.
Yeah, and we see this ward here being placed down. That's kind of the one that spotted out FlyQuest last time when they were going for the swap. On top side, we saw Huhi put down his ward, but now it looks like he's going down towards bot side where FBI already is, so swap probably not coming through.
No one's committed completely to top lane yet, though, with Dhokla waiting in case there is some type of late invade. A lot of mind games going on here.
Moving.
Well, they saw Bwipo's Ksante on that ward. You can see the pings moving out, and FBI is slow walking up to the top lane, so the swap engaged.
All right, and we'll see how this works for NRG. This gives me a chance to talk about lane swaps as, like, the only person in the LCS, apparently, that likes talking about them.
Don't be modest, Emily. You're like the only person in the world that enjoys.
I can't be, because Kelsey also exists. But I think the big thing for me when you're looking at, okay, how do teams deal with a lane swap? Yes, it's about keeping laners down, especially top laners, but it's also about mitigating mid pressure depending on where you want to send your top, about getting out of certain laning matchups, and we'll see how NRG handle this. They haven't always looked super comfortable in some of their swaps, whereas FlyQuest are, I would say them and TL are the two teams that are most comfortable with it.
One of the big things I always check at the start of lane swaps is how much experience the top laners can actually get. So when I'm looking at this, Bwipo has actually been able to get about half a level, and Dhokla's only now at about 2/3 of a level while still at full health. So currently I'd say it's advantage Sion, but it will depend also on how big this wave stack can get and whether or not the top laner feels comfortable letting the wave crash or if they have to abandon it. So they've both gotten level 2 now. That's important for them.
They both have level 2, but look at Inspired. The Vi is down here in the bottom lane, looking to set up for the dive. Cannon minion's gonna soak most of the shots. Dhokla's still hanging around for now. They lock him up, beat him down. First blood over to Busio, and FlyQuest got that done easy.
But he is going to hit level 3 off these minions, and this is why we see Sion do pretty well in these lane swap situations, is because he still can get XP after death. And he'll be able to TP back and also get this wave that Massu and Busio are pushing into turret.
Speaking of waves being pushed into turret, up here on the top side, Bwipo is facing no sort of threat, similar to what his opponent did. Yeah, FBI and Huhi are still going to be annoying, poking at him underneath this turret, but he'll farm up as much as he can. Still doesn't have quite as much farm compared to the Sion there. As you can see, Contractz making his way into the top side river. Might just go for the full jungle invade here, but the control ward placed down by FlyQuest's side on the brush of their own blue is going to let them know what Contractz is up to. And you can see some pings coming out from Energy.
And this is the other trade. Like, Contractz is a full clear and now counter jungling because Inspired spent the time to kill that Sion. So he's still not quite having smite. Can Inspire get in and steal it?
Well, not when Huhi's around. I like the rotation here from Energy support, recognizing that there might be a challenge for this, wanting to make sure that Energy gets the maximum amount of punish for that bot lane dive.
Yeah, and NRG are not doing so bad in the swap. I actually expected FlyQuest to be able to take advantage of them more, especially since Quad's lane has been relatively untouched, right? He's kind of had push in this lane up until now. And that's kind of another underrated thing on lane swaps is like how much you are able to harass and get a good lane for your mid laner.
And I think they might be going for more down bottom. Inspired doesn't have anything to do other than dive the Sion once again.
Here we go. Busio with another root. Gonna tank the maximum amount of turret shots, gets out of the way in time, and Massu gets the last bullet. Inspired ain't gonna die to the counter attack while Energy gets one back here on the top lane. Tier 1 dive. It's a 2-to-1 overall, a 1-for-1 play as the top laners just have bullseyes on their foreheads here in his lane swap.
And then also a small note that the early game death timers are slightly higher, so Bwipo's gonna lose a little bit more before teleporting back, but just trying to actually take stock of who's winning this lane swap. Emily, what do you think?
I mean, I think NRG have actually done a pretty good job. Dhokla is in a good spot where he should be able to get level 6 ahead of Bwipo. Actually, no, Bwipo's catching up now.
They're both just level 5. They have the same level of experience. Let's watch this dive one more time because there's no Sion here, but Bwipo has held his TP this entire time, so he thinks it's not the end of the world if he dies, but it's just a very clean dive there from Energy. FBI is the range champion, in no danger of dying to the turret.
Yeah, and as we see in live, Dhokla is still getting harassed off here. The big thing for me, honestly, coming out of this swap, is that Bwipo is now slightly ahead in experience, but then also the mid lane has remained untouched, and Quad is looking quite good, which has given Inspired a pretty good idea of where everyone has been on the map, right? And that's also another underrated thing. As we see, Contractz, because they have prio on this, or they have control over this top side, he'll be able to pick up these grubs looking uncontested, while Inspired will go for the first strike.
Exactly. The contest isn't direct. You're just saying, all right, we'll handshake these. I'll take Dragon, you take Grubs. No problem there. Dhokla still just trying to enjoy the sights, sounds, and smells of the Rift here in his lane swap game as he walks around and knows that he is on the wrong side of the map. FlyQuest has total control, but Energy might just look to make another dive here on the top side. That is a level 6 Ksante. It makes things very, very dangerous. So it looks like FBI and Huhi are just going to continue mining plates away from the turret while Contractz steals the jungle.
And this is really where FlyQuest are pulling ahead, right? Because Massu and Busio have been dirty farming this entire time. Bwipo has already hit level 6. Energy was not able to dive him. And once again, FlyQuest still have complete mid prio from Quad continuously pushing Palafox in this mid lane. And they're going to get first turret off of it, too.
Right, yeah. Remember, the bottom lane turrets are so much squishier than the top lane turrets, specifically to try to dissuade these types of plays, these types of strategies. And FlyQuest are getting so much punishment on these structures for Energy. This bottom lane tier 1 nearly almost killed already. We're only 7.5 minutes into the game, and Massu will be left to take care of that while Inspired and Busio still both hang around. Inspired just continuing to clean out this enemy jungle quadrant while Busio guarantees nobody else from Energy is going to make an appearance. And its first turret, 7 minutes and 45 seconds into the game for FlyQuest.
And this generally means that's the big win of the swap. It was an interesting swap to me because of how long they stayed in it. There was no swap back. Around the level 5 or 6 point for the top laners, and as Emily's showing right now, it's grown to a 2-level advantage for Bwipo. The only thing that this cost FlyQuest was Inspired's farm and level in comparison to Contractz. He's 10 CS down, not the end of the world. He also just at level 6. It's not the position Inspired is used to being in, but he's going to take it for a 2,000 gold advantage for his team.
Yeah, and if you look at the lanes across the board too, right? Like, they're almost all blue except for that jungle matchup that you pointed out, Jatt. And FlyQuest have had such a better idea of, again, where to be on the map in this swap. They've known where Contractz is going to be, more importantly. So he hasn't been able to...
Oh, man,
Dhokla might
Dhokla
be dead again.
One more hit might just kill him. Massu, look at the cooldown on True Shot Barrage. It's not quite there.
There it is.
There it is. One more second, might be able to find that one. Okay, he's not going to take the shot. I thought for sure he would just go fishing with it. But
yeah, at the very least, he could have interrupted a recall, but he didn't think Dhokla was going to die to that one, and he's fine just sending him back to base and maybe getting his teleport out, which comes right now. Watch out mid. He dodged that? Yes, he did.
All right. 2,000 gold lead, not feeling too bad at all. 9 minutes into the game here for FlyQuest. You already mentioned that, you know, the only person ahead in gold is Contractz there in the jungle, but remember that he was the one who got the 1 kill that NRG picked up, and that gold lead that he has is just barely more than the total gold for the kill, so it's not like this extra farm has really given him an economic advantage. Maybe they can get something off of a crazy Wukong play, but it just feels like FlyQuest are the clear winners here in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I know we talk about Inspired, CEO, full clear, all of that. We talk about Contractz as jungler and what we want to see from him, which is him interacting with his lanes, right? But outside of that top lane dive, he went in, he was able to get a few camps. There was a point in time where I thought he might wrap around onto Quad because Quad was so far pushed up, didn't end up going for that either. And it's been Inspired, actually, who's been able to help out his team a lot more on the map.
They're playing really well, and Inspired throughout this entire split, as he's actually just led all junglers in CS at 14 by a pretty wide margin, he just says he wants to play the correct and best way to play the game. And we are on a new patch here in 14-16, so I'm going to be really curious to the rest of this game, the rest of the series, and the rest of this playoffs, if FlyQuest is going to change their read on the meta, because they were the most consistent in being AD carry mid, AP farming Inspired, and this different style is working quite well for them for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd say they already have, right? Like both of these teams seem to have fully embraced the patch. I can't reiterate enough as we see if FlyQuest are going to contest for these grubs or not.
Yeah, NRG got the first pot of grubs now. They've got the first one in the second pot as well, so they're guaranteed to have the grubling spawns. Arrow flies out. They find the connect onto Inspire, but he gets himself back away. Now Dhokla's going to be taking some damage as Contractz needs to disengage here with the decoy. They wanted to try to get in for the flank attack, but it ain't going to work out because Palafox is picked off and shut down before he can do a damn thing. FlyQuest dismantled him, and they'll take the last couple of grubs.
And that fight was all about the angles. Palafox tried to approach for the flank, but he got collapsed on first. The other side of the fight wasn't actually going incredibly for FlyQuest. Quad Shockwave, as you'll see, only hits the Sion, but let's watch the angle with which Palafox actually comes into the fight.
Yeah, and I think the big thing here is that Palafox is coming in. Bwipo is already there.
So fast.
He's already on top of him, right? So he completely cannot do anything, removes him entirely from the fight. And meanwhile, Busio and Massu are actually putting on quite a good amount of poke damage. Yeah. Again, when you're looking at what they can do, they can just fight back.
Good job. They need to go bot 1%. Good call for the TP. Any flashes?
Oh, right back to live though, and a pick on Quad is desperately needed for NRG after that river fight. I think y'all called it perfectly, man. There was just no way for Palafox to even play it from that TP position.
Yeah, and I also like that the team called Bwipo to teleport in, because Bwipo was happy just taking that wave. Would love to see how Quad got picked off there. Flash and teleport up, probably a little bit greedy since everything had been going so well for FlyQuest. They were getting free turret plates up top there, but that pick is going to lead to this Drake for NRG and definitely slow the FlyQuest snowball.
Yeah, I mean, it's a slight window for NRG, right?
Yeah, he just got caught hand in the cookie jar at Raptors there.
Hey, I said maybe the Wukong with his little 300 gold lead could find something. I guess he found Orianna.
And they will get the Drake off of this, which does stop like FlyQuest early Drake stacking, right? And they were able to get 4 grubs with Fly taking the other 2 off of that team fight. But then you see only 1 turret plate on that top tier 1 for FlyQuest. They just have a much better map state right now. And additionally, I mean, Bwipo is so far ahead of Dhokla coming out of this swap, and that has not evened out since.
Yeah, and I will say, we mentioned this last week with FlyQuest as well, and we talked about Bwipo. When he is ahead, the team does extremely well. When he is behind, they're actually quite poor. We checked these stats. This is ahead at 14 minutes for all their players, and the one that is most determinant of a FlyQuest victory defeat is Bwipo. So the fact that the result of this swap has put him in a 2-level advantage and a pretty big goal lead over Dhokla means he really has a vision of how to play the rest of the game out. You can see just 1v1 taking this turret and extending his lead.
Yeah, and now he's even going to get the plate and the turret before plating falls, right?
Yeah.
Too. So again, one of the reasons why I did not only favor FlyQuest in this matchup, but was looking ahead at how they could potentially really contest TL and C9 is because they are good in these swap situations.
Yeah.
And you can see how thoughtful they are about where they need to be on the map.
Ooh.
Okay, that was quite a big hit onto FBI, and unfortunately it hits right as everybody is squaring up for the stare down around the Rift Herald pit. Now, NRG, yeah, they've done a pretty good job coming out slightly ahead on neutral objectives so far, but it's about the only thing that they can really claim has gone their way so far in this game, down 3,500 gold. They can't really afford to keep slipping further and further behind because FlyQuest is tightening their grip on this game, and it looks like Quad and Inspired are just going to go ahead, start up the Herald. They don't even care about this ward in the pit. They don't even need to sweep out to check it. It looks like NRG's going no contest on this one.
And I can see why, because if you think about how they would actually try and contest, sure, they'd walk up one of these corridors, but who would do it that doesn't just die? Because the Ezreal is extremely fed off to the races. I drew that line poorly. Even the Sion tank, just armor, so very easy for a QW from the Orianna to poke him out. Just the people that would need, like the Sion actually really needs gold for this comp to function at all. Otherwise, they're going to get poked out extremely easily.
Yeah, and it's not like we're talking about armor of, oh, he's just got a Sunfire cape. You know, it's shoes and a chain vest. The rest of it is starter item junk that you can buy when you spawn into the game.
At 15 minutes.
He's not feeling super tanky on this pick right now.
He may as well be a support Sion at this point.
Yeah, it's not feeling great there for Big Dokes up in the top lane as the Herald is summoned in mid. There's still plenty of HP left in the tier 1 turret. But Massu is going to drive this thing straight into it, spawn a couple of little extra grub babies. Not enough damage from the charge to force this thing down immediately. Massu gets hit by the arrow, but not too worried about that one. Dhokla wanted to engage for the follow-up here with the ulti, but the threat of the shockwave forces the Sion to flash out or face certain doom.
And that's another thing we've kind of been talking about with NRG not necessarily being on the same page. If, as soon as that arrow hits, Dhokla should already be coming in if they want to go for that play, right? But then, as Jatt already pointed out, FlyQuest are so far ahead, especially Massu in this bot lane can do so much poke damage, and he and Busio can just kite back out while dealing damage to you. It's going to be really hard to get in on them.
I mean, look at the itemization difference, right? You got tier 2 boots on both, but Trinity Force and a 3/4 stacked Manamune, which will be Muramana here in a minute or two, right? Versus Static Shiv Ashe. One of these is going to do a lot more damage over the course of a team fight than the other is. And if you're NRG, it's hard to even figure out an angle where you can make up for that gap.
Especially because the angle there was land the Ashe arrow perfectly onto the carry, but you don't even get a summoner spell because Busio already has Mikhail's. So good luck getting the right engage. It's basically Huhi has to land some 3 or 4 man with the Wukong coming in, but if the vision gets set up properly by FlyQuest, they're not going to let that happen. Let's see how this dragon plays out, because the way when you are a team that gets poked out like this, the way you generate fights is around objectives. But with no lanes being pushed in, it then gets even harder. So FlyQuest are in a very strong winning position here in NRG. They have to get a little bit frisky.
Can I just say I'm having a lot of fun, like drawing minion waves out and
It's
like
great.
talking about lane swaps. I don't know if anyone else
This is your kind of
having
series,
fun, but
Emily.
I'm having a great time, guys.
We're there. I'm happy for your happiness. I'm not happy for a lane swap, but I'm happy that my friend is happy. We can have some wholesome
Flowers.
happiness
Thank you,
sharing here.
Flowers.
But
I
we
think
have
you're going to be
some-
happy. There's going to be a fight.
This
will be a
does
fight.
make me happy. We got some PvP coming up next here on the menu as Bwipo has found the angle if NRG tries to commit to this Drake to make that pincer happen. NRG knows it, though. They don't want to walk up into this. They know how far behind they are. They know that if they take a fight, it has got to be decidedly in their favor. Quad and Inspire taking the chance, going after the tier 1 here in the mid lane instead as Busio tries to get away. The engage from NRG
no
ain't doing a whole
shot.
lot here just yet. Huhi might just die instead as Bwipo continues kiting and fighting right on back. Contractz on the front line is going to be killed off first. Massu goes on a killing spree, and the cavalry has arrived. NRG are dropping like flies, and FlyQuest got the fly swatter all day. Inspired takes out FBI, and he goes straight back in for the objective. Quad is still ready to keep this one going, and Huhi's ready to go to hell home. He's trying to get away to the safety of the lane, the safety of the minions, but there's no safety left, man. Busio sped up. He is going all in. Alcove Gaming will not save you. Run, little Rakan, run. Just think about Zaya. Think about home. Try to think about something happy because the fight ain't that. 9-2, 7,000 gold lead FlyQuest.
And that is what we've been waiting for, Flowers, but this is the fight that started it. The two-man in the mid lane, bursting the turret and immediately killing Palafox. You cannot flash a Vi or a Vi Orianna. They get the kill, while the rest of the team was winning and holding off into 3v4.
Yeah, the big thing here is, again, while this play is happening mid and they're getting that kill onto Palafox, when Contractz goes in, again, Massu untouched. He just escapes out here. Even when Huhi goes in, he takes way too much damage. They're able to burn down Contractz first. Quad and Inspired are now coming off around the back of this fight. They get Dhokla. It's so difficult to get onto FlyQuest carries, and they're able to just mop up this fight afterwards. I should clear out my random scribble there. Sorry about that.
That guy on screen right now with the big smile, he played that fight so well. The 3v4 as the Ksante, he blocked the Sion ult, he tanked all the damage, he didn't even die by the end of it. So he's got 1-1-3 on the scoreline, lowest CS of any of the carries on his team, but he's playing his style of game, which is extremely successful in Game 1 for FlyQuest.
And you know, you're kind of making the case for the point that you argued earlier, Jatt, in that yes, Bwipo has had a couple of pants on head moments so far in Summer Split, but they only happen because he earned those pants in the first place, winning his lanes and having good plays to be in that position. So far in this one, it's all coming up Bwipo, it's all coming up FlyQuest, and I feel like if you're NRG, we're past the point of strategy. It's a religious matter at this point. You're just praying that they mess up.
I just like that analogy they're using where he earned the pants that he could then put on his head and not wear correctly. But I do think, again, when you're looking at like, okay, are FlyQuest going to be able to adapt to this meta? Well, we've already seen Inspired be super successful on the Vi.
Yeah.
Quad, back when he was in LCK, when he was Solka, and also on FlyQuest Challengers, played mages. He was primarily a mage player. He's very comfortable in this meta. And Massu and Busio are playing something that we've kind of already seen them be successful with, right? So they look completely comfortable, even with most of their success this summer coming from AD mid, AP jungle.
I agree. There's a very small victory here for NRG getting that one objective bounty, whereas FlyQuest doesn't trade it back for anything meaningful at the moment. So little bits of guerrilla warfare like that from NRG would keep this game a little bit open, but it's that fine line, Flowers, where NRG is wondering how much they want to come back in this game versus think about and discuss game 2. Because
you have to...
it is not in a good state at the moment.
Thought economy is what we're talking
Bwipo's
about.
pants!
Bwipo might have found himself caught. He wants to go all out. He's got a little bit of Omni-Vamp. He's got his jungler right next to him. And NRG's got no hope of taking down the widest Bwipo here in the top lane, here on Ksante, here to kick off the playoffs. The dude won't die.
Just Ksante things, no problem. He's almost 2K ahead now of the Sion. They'll easily get mid turret off of this. I did think that was going to be a moment where we're like, oh no, he's gone too far in, or he's been caught out on the Ksante. We've seen it before in some of their more recent games. Not this time.
Nope, pants
he's
on
too
properly.
far ahead.
Pants still properly on.
Buttoned up, belt fastened to the right loop.
Everything's good.
Having a great time here in this first game.
They're not falling off this time.
Nope, those pants are securely fastened. So is this 8,500 gold lead. Not even 23 minutes into the game for FlyQuest. I feel like it's all just about how fast they can wrap this one up now. FBI lands an arrow to interrupt a recall on Massu, but I mean, plus 200 damage to your champ damage stat at the end of the game. That's about all you're getting from that one.
Very true. Just delays the recall. Still a control word in the pit for FlyQuest, so the risk of a Baron rush by NRG is not there. Let's think about this NRG team as a whole, though, and after this fight here, where Palafox again thinks he might have something going, but Inspired and Bwipo just absolutely demolish the mid and top lane. Bwipo's
Oh! Just, hey, mods, we have subscriber emotes now. Go back and screenshot that. That is an emote. We need that.
Emote.
That is perfect. Bwipo thinking. Bwipo, all sorts of ways we could turn that one into some content right there. As Palafox and Contractz do not want to be turned into content from FlyQuest social media channels, but I don't know if they're going to be able to stop it. Here comes a TP from Dhokla. The Sion ain't tanky. Inspired's here in the front line. They finally might be able to burst him down, but a 4-man shockwave into the follow-up for the Atofo strikes. FlyQuest might have lost one, but they're gonna make NRG rue the day they came to fight in this mid lane. FlyQuest with a 4-man push straight into the heart of the maze.
trying to keep the minions alive here, Quad, with the questionable teleport. They can't end off of this one because Palafox could clear that wave, but they'll just move back for the Drake.
They'll probably just go for Drake. But yeah, wow, what a combination from Quad and Bwipo, right?
Yeah.
It ended up looking a little dicey, although another thing to point out is they do immediately turn onto Dhokla as soon as, right, Inspired backs off immediately. They turn onto Dhokla coming in to the TP. NRG members get grouped, which sets up the shockwave for Quad coming, and then Bwipo.
FBI catching the very end of that shockwave into the third strike from Bwipo there for the full knockback. At least the Mountain Drake, and now the setup for Baron. Inspired will be the only person they might try and pick again, but Steric's Gauge completed. Orianna, Karma Shields flying in. It takes a bit of a miracle to actually get a kill on him here.
Yeah.
Oh, look out.
I don't think this is going to take an entire miracle to get the kill on Dhokla, though. The Sion flashing back over the wall. He will stay alive for now. Ball breaker ready from Inspired. A little bit more damage here into the big man in top lane. Might get another Bwipo over the wall again with a massive engage. FBI is the first to die. Bwipo gets traded back this time, and Palafox has the shutdown. 1 for 1, but NRG's got some seriously injured health bars, and FlyQuest is taking over the jungle.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a positive play. I think it could have gone better for FlyQuest. Ideally, they'd want to take Baron off of this. Instead, I think they're just going to go for that Drake that they didn't end up taking earlier. But, you know, if Bwipo manages to live there, that's like a Baron and push to end.
Well, instead, you're just going to get your soul point 26 minutes into the game, about 9,000 gold ahead. Why not add another little bonus here on the FlyQuest performance in game number 1? And guys, this is kind of what I think everyone was predicting for this series thus far in this first game, with FlyQuest just dominating.
Yeah, lane swaps, map control, Bwipo being Bwipo. I feel like we've like checked off all the FlyQuest boxes, right? And
Massu continuing to improve throughout the year. I think Rookie of the Year votes are in for most, but we don't know who's actually won that award yet. I think Massu's definitely the front runner for it.
I voted for Massu. I will spoil my own vote.
Are you allowed to do that? They always tell me I can't.
Well,
Too
if
late.
I can't, I will get a talking to for it later, but I voted for Massu.
Wow.
It's been done. And this game would just strengthen your voting record, Flowers, because yes, part of this was the fact that they just had free time on the advantageous side of the lane swap, and because they had the extended lane swap, they could also get the first turret. But turning a 400 gold lead into a 3,800 gold lead isn't just because of the lane swap. It's because they've been playing this game out so incredibly well. The Mikhail's rush is for safety. I don't think Massu's had to use cleanse all game, but he just has it because
I actually can't
extra
remember him
insurance.
using it now, but
The only time he got hit,
may have had.
the only time he got hit by the arrow was the mid lane where the Mikhail's was used on him instead. Huhi, that's the wrong base, dude. This is the wrong base. It's not yours. That's not. Okay, the execute at least. That's the that's the biggest prize you can win in a moment like that.
Momentum.
Quad is coming after him like it's a survival horror game, and Huhi knows the only way out is to reset the console. As NRG, they're just trying to at least step up here a little bit, maybe try to step forward and challenge at the Baron, but the problem is, man, Huhi is one of your main engages, and he is dead. Contractz will not be allowed anywhere near the pit. He's got 40% HP, and Bwipo is just a brick wall to try to get through. Baron secured, 28 minutes in, nice and clean for FlyQuest.
That's so tough because as we saw from the picture-in-picture, Palafox was trying to get something, anything, right? And then potentially TP in, maybe if they got an advantageous spot. He's not even able to get that bot tier 2 off of cross-mapping. It's a really, really tough situation for NRG.
And that was pretty nice teamwork by FlyQuest. In terms of junglers that you don't want to flip Baron against, Contractz is at the top of the list. I think he's still either tied or one back of all-time LCS record for Baron steals, as Inspired is actually looking to end this game. Okay, backing up. But just the fact that Bwipo stood up front, Busio was shielding him and poking the small corridor, and then even Massu came around the top. There was literally no way in for NRG to steal that Baron. It's one of the safest Baron takes you'll ever see.
Yeah, and as we see, mid wave getting pushed in, top wave getting pushed in, bot now pushing up a little bit more, and we're going to see Quad TPing in for this bot side push against all of NRG.
Slight criticism. I haven't loved Quad's last 2 TPs, Flowers.
A damning accusation coming out from Jatt for the mid laner of FlyQuest here in this first game. This might change everything as Massu, there's the cleanse we were talking about. Summoner spells used to get the FlyQuest AD carry away as Dhokla and Contractz try to put pressure onto the back line, but Quad is still staying alive and fighting him off. Contractz first to die. Dhokla gets away off to the side. Palafox running as the True Shot barrage goes wide, and FBI and Huhi are still just scrambling, backpedaling, trying to clear distance between themselves and FlyQuest because Mystic Shot charges half a health bar per transaction. FlyQuest are not done pushing. The mid lane inhibitor's about to die to the minions. There it goes. The next wave is ready here in bottom lane. Tier 2, blink and you'll miss it. That thing is gone. Quad has to make the long journey on foot all the way back to the fight, but it looks like FlyQuest is going to take their chance and reset.
They are making sure that the comeback is not possible here. That was the max safety play because Bwipo had a wave of Baron minions in mid lane, free inhibitor, free pressure on the turret. They probably would have won the 4v5, but he teleports anyway, just in case Contractz engaged was going to be bigger. And then the reason they recalled here rather than push for another inhib is that timer you see in the top right where Mountain Soul is going to be up in 24 seconds because they're going to get that too.
And I was going to say, they have complete control over the spot side of the map.
Yeah, that timer lines up almost perfectly with their Baron buff. They're going to have that buff all the way until the dragon spawns, so it's impossible for NRG to try to get back any ground, try to get back any control over the rift before it happens. Here goes your red buff too, just to add insult to injury. And NRG, they'll at least grab a tier 1 up here in the top lane. Palafox will pick that up, but it's a drop in the ocean at this point of the game.
Yeah, and the more impressive thing, as we see if Bwipo and Inspired might want to go for Palafox again.
That was a Ksante moment right there.
I mean,
I'm just gonna walk away from the Sion, go all out on him now. Inspired is finishing Gromp. He is more concerned about Gromp than he is about Palafox and Dhokla. Massu soloed the dragon.
He's truly become SOFM. I think the most impressive thing, as we see, people probably aren't going to die off this play, is again the setup from FlyQuest on, like you pointed out, Jatt, right? They're pushing out mid. They set it up so they are in a situation with these Baron buff minion advantages where when Contractz inevitably comes in, like I tried to draw the arrow to predict his entry. I actually don't know how successful I was in that.
This sequence.
Yeah, like they set up everything so that it makes NRG's choices so tough, even if they see a good angle.
And FlyQuest is absolutely playing with their food this game, I would say. That whole sequence by Bwipo while Inspired was killing the Gromp, and that whole slow chase that Inspired just did, where he just is almost torturing NRG, making them walk back to base, because he was never going to actually fight them, but he was making sure they had to do what he wanted.
Man, if FlyQuest is playing with their food, they're making NRG look chewy right now. These guys are just not standing the test of time as FlyQuest are done toying around. They are done with game one, and they are looking to end it here. Palafox finally finds a shuffle, but it's far too late for that. Quad goes on a rampage. NRG gets aced. The only cost is just Bwipo there in the top lane, and it's a trade he's happy to make. It was one-sided straight out of the gate, 22-5. 14,000 gold lead, Dragon Soul, Baron, the whole kitchen sink. FlyQuest takes game one.
And don't let the fact that this game took almost 34 minutes make you think the game was close.
It was
because FlyQuest was, to your point, Flowers, ahead from basically minute 5.
Yeah, and FlyQuest are so good. Again, we talked a lot about Bwipo. We talked about their map movements. We talked about how Inspired looked this game. FlyQuest carries in Quad and Massu. I think only Quad died the one time.
Yep.
Massu went deathless. They both looked really good in this composition. Again, understanding who they need to get the gold on and trusting their young carries to get them there.
Good game one from FlyQuest. Now a reminder to all y'all LCS fans out there, next week we will be live on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Playoffs means we got more games some weeks, and next week's one of them. That's a bonus day on Friday, then the regularly scheduled programming returning on Saturday and Sunday.